What if Bill Buckner fielded that ball cleanly? You ready?
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, it's Game 6 of the 1986 World Series. Bill Buckner, first base for the Red Sox, playing pretty deep off that bag. Let's be honest. He's too far back. And Mookie Wilson hits a grounder with runners on, second and third, by the way, I think, if I remember right. Or is it first and second? Anyway, there are two runners on. Mookie Wilson hits a slow roll ground ball, literally right up the first baseline, and Bill Buckner muffs it. It goes right through his legs, right between his legs. And the Mets go on to win Game 6, and that forces a Game 7. That would have put the Red Sox as one. That was the one out had he fielded it cleanly. They say that would have ended the 68-year at that time, 68-year Red Sox World Series drought. Okay? So if Buckner fields that ball cleanly, here's what happens.
I'm a little worried, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm buckled up.
Rather than the ball going through his legs, he fields it cleanly. Bob Stanley, who's the pitcher, still never even attempts to hustle the first base to help back up the play, which he got a late start on in the real world anyway. But let's say because Buckner fields the ball, he doesn't even try. So Mookie Wilson slides headfirst into first base and makes the bag because Buckner was still too far back. Let's be honest. He's like, I don't know. It's bad. It's like 2 feet back. So he doesn't have enough time to get there, and there's nobody else there to back him up. So Wilson still makes the play at first base. All right. But Ryan Knight gets held up at third base and doesn't make it home to force the Game 7. Okay. The game ends up in extra innings. As the game goes into extra innings, the Mets still prevail and force a Game 7 because the Red Sox pitching broke down. Okay. They left Stanley in way too long, and the Mets took over, forced the Game 7. So they go to Game 7. Game 7 goes into extra innings, and it ends up being already, without knowing who wins, one of the greatest World Series in the history of the World Series, which you could say it already is. But that 86 Miracle Mets World Series ends up going the other direction. And the Red Sox end their drought in Game 7 against the 86 Miracle Mets. And this is where things start to go crazy. Okay. I mean, that's nuts. That's totally nuts.
Where it starts.
So the first layer of what happens in the wake of this storyline is that the Red Sox get all pompous, right? And they all think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And they got some great talent on that team. And they go on to fail spectacularly in every subsequent season until they get a full rebuild. So that's the first layer. The more important layer is that every member of those 86 Mets that needs to go to rehab and get off the sauce, they all do. No more cocaine, no more heavy drinking. All the parties get stopped because the management and the ownership and everybody comes down on them hard. Like, what happened? Why did we lose? We had no business losing. We should have won. What is it? And every one of them, like Doc Gooden, for instance, they all go to rehab and they get the help that they need. And then they all extend their careers. And there's no police issues. There's no worried about hangovers at ball games. None of that stuff happens. And the Miracle Mets end up being the franchise of the decade in the 90s. They clean things up in the 90s. They clean things up from 86 on. And when 1989 and 1990 come about, they've got veteran leadership that can hang in there. They've got a lot of up-and-coming guys like David Cohn doesn't leave, for instance, and everybody else goes, and the 90s are dominated by the 86 or by the Mets.
Wow. I like that. That's good.
What I think happens.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nothing like losing a World Series to set you straight.
Right. Well, and they play the Red Sox repeatedly in this alternate history I've come up with.
Oh, organizational momentum.
Yeah, there's a Mets-Red Sox rivalry that develops hardcore at that World Series level.
Nice.
Through the 90s.
That's very good. So what happens with the strike though? Like, are the Mets basically unfazed by the strike?
Yeah. No, they skate right through it.
Yeah, because I feel like the strike was the turning point for the Yankees in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
that it's like they came back for the partial season in 95, and then after that it was the Yankees the rest of the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so unfazed by the strike.
It doesn't bother them at all. It bothers everybody else though, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Especially the
So
Expos. Oh, it's so sad.